Good evening, guys, and welcome to this live session of Cost and Management Audit. Vadakkam, Namaskara, and Namaskaram to all my South Indian students. Yes. Good evening, Leena, Vivek, Rasmi Ranjan, Leena, Yukta, Shreya. Yes, very much visible, Mahendra Reddy. Good evening and welcome to yet another energetic session of Cost and Management Audit, because we know that this particular subject is going to give you that edge over another subjects that will give you the benefit of set off, and of course make you eligible for an exemption, because it is the most easiest paper of Group 4 Cost and Management Audit as well as BVM SPM. So work hard in these two subjects, guys. You will definitely be able to score 70 plus, bare minimum 70 plus. Without any grave efforts, you'll be able to score 70 plus in these two papers, Cost Audit and BVM SPM, for the sure. So yes, are we ready for today's marathon session? And yes, as you can see on the board, we are going to start the cost accounting standards today. Are we all ready? How's the Josh? Let me check it out on the computer screen in the chat box. Please confirm. How's the Josh, guys? How's the Josh? Confirm on the chat box. How's the Josh? Yes. Full Josh. China Keshwa says. Okay. Neha says full Josh. Hi, Josh. Yes. Hi. Definitely, guys. The Josh is high because we know for the sure that these two subjects are going to give us an edge. Let us put in our heart and soul to these two subjects, Cost and Management Audit and BVM SPM. And yes, this is a session of Cost and Management Audit. We have already taken so many sessions whereby we have discussed the basics of cost audit, the professional misconducts, the cost accounting record rules, which are very, very important from an exam standpoint. And today we are going to start this amazing topic, which is cost accounting standards. Let us start cost accounting. Okay, there was an echo. You could have heard an echo. Okay, yes. All set, guys. All set for this particular chapter. This is a very, very important chapter from an exam standpoint, cost accounting standards. And before starting this chapter, let me ask you a question. What do you mean by standards? Okay. Forget about cost accounting standards. Okay. Forget about accounting standards. Forget about ICDS, which are the income computation disclosure standards. You have studied so many standards in your entire course. Forget about all those standards. Now, please tell me, guys, what do you mean by standards? What do you mean by standard? I am just wanting to ask you one question. What do you mean by standard? What is the meaning of this word standard? Please confirm me in the chat box. What do you mean by standard? What is the meaning of the word standard? वाह वाह, डायलॉग कमिंग फ्रॉम अभिषेक कुमार शर्मा. सर, आपकी स्माइल ने मेरे ट्रैवल के कम कारण हुई थकान को मिटा दिया. वाह वाह. और एक बात बताऊं, जब सीएम में बन जाओगे ना, तो सारी थकान, ये जो थकान एफर्ट्स की, स्ट्रगल्स की थकान है ना, ये सब मिट जाएगी एक सेकंड में. Yes, very good answer by Mahendra Reddy. Guidelines. Standard means generally accepted way of doing something. Very good, Neha. Vivek Lambate says rules and processes. MN King says uniformity. Keep uniform in all industries. Very good set of rules and regulations. Very good. Certain principles or rules which need to be followed to maintain uniformity. Very, very good. Standard means principle to be followed. Perfect. Level of basic or minimum quality to adhere. Very, very good answer. To work according to that rules and regulations. Very good. Attainment as per expectations. Very good answer by all of you. Standards means something what you have written in the chat box. Standard means the most expected way of doing a thing. So there can be 2-3 ways of doing everything. Okay. The most expected way of doing that particular thing, the most obvious way of doing that particular thing is known as standard. I'll give you a simple example. Please comment in the chat box. What is C plus O2? One element of carbon multiplied by 2 elements of oxygen. What is C plus O2? Please write in the chat box. What is C plus O2? What is the meaning of word? What is the resultant, resultant part of this equation? C plus O2. Yes, Abhishek, the basic parameter to measure or limit something. Carbon dioxide, CO2, perfect, perfect, perfect. Now, here my next question. I want to do C plus O2 not in Delhi. Currently, I was doing it in Delhi. I want to do it in Maharashtra. In Maharashtra, what is C plus O2? C plus O2 in Maharashtra, not in Delhi. Currently, I was doing it in Delhi. Okay. In Maharashtra, what is C plus O2? आशुतोष मित्रा says water. वाह वाह, केमिस्ट्री कहां से पढ़ के आए हो आशुतोष मिश्रा? आशुतोष मिश्रा कह रहे हैं C plus O2 is equal to water. वाह वाह, जबरदस्त. So in Mumbai, Maharashtra, what will be the result? Everyone is saying the same. Okay, now I change the city. What will be the change? What will be the result if I do the same experiment in Chennai? Chennai this time, okay, down south, Chennai. Also same, perfect. Also same, perfect. All right, forget about India. I'm going abroad. I'm going to United Kingdom. I'm going to London. And I do C plus O2. What is the resultant figure in London? What will be the result in London? C plus O2. What is the result in London? Please comment in the chat box. C plus O2 in London. What is the result? Net result? No change occur. Absolutely. So all of you agree that C plus O2 done anywhere in the world will remain as C plus O2. These are universal principles of science which do not change. These are universal principles which do not depend on anything. They would be constant around the world, around the clock, at any hour of the given day. If you do these experiments, they will remain the same. They will always be the same, and they won't change ever for anything. They will always be the same. That is the that is the conclusion that we draw out of our discussion. Perfect, sir. Yes, that is the conclusion which we draw. Perfect. Now, my question number 2 is, I opened a grocery store in Delhi, and it's a big, big, big hit. It is earning me several crores of profits, and it's an amazing hit. I've opened a store. I've also opened an online store. I've done several things around that store, and it's a big hit. Now I want an answer from you. If the same store is opened in Chennai, Mumbai, or anywhere in the world, would it give me the same profits, or the profits might vary? Please answer in the chat box. Please answer in the chat box. Would it vary from cities to city or country to country, or will it remain same around the world? Please answer in the chat box. I've opened a grocery store, an amazingly profitable grocery store. Will it vary? Will it remain the same? Yukta says profit will vary. Dugi Reddy says it will vary. The profit might vary. It will not be the same. No change. Ajna says no change. Kushwan says it will vary. Joshika says it will vary. Now I ask you, why will it vary? Why can't the result be same, just like C plus O2 is equal to CO2? Why can't the result of a grocery store, which is a commercial transaction, be the same in the entire world? Why can't it happen? The reason of why it won't vary, why it will vary, why it won't remain the same. What is the reason? Why will it vary from country to country? Why will it vary from cities to city? What is the reason? That's what I want to ask you in the chat box. Please comment in the chat box. Absolutely very good answer. Based on the market conditions, based on the economy of that particular country, based on the environment where that grocery store has been opened, based on the per capita income of the people who are staying around that place, based on the utility, how useful is that particular grocery store to that particular area or that particular country or that particular state. Depending upon all these several factors, guys, we will actually find that our commercial transactions vary from state to state, individual to individual, country to country. However, scientific principles do not change ever. They will remain the constant. They will yield the same result. So science doesn't need standards because there's only one way of doing things. In science, there is no need of standards because there's only one way of doing things. But in case of commerce, we need standards because we have multiple ways of doing things. The output might vary according to the inputs that we are putting in. So everything might change in commercial world. However, in scientific world, things don't change. So in case of commerce, depreciation is also leviable on straight line method or WDV method. In commercial world, inventory valuation can also be done using three methods: weighted average, LIFO, FIFO. Another method, new method, is specific identification method. So in commercial world, there is no one best way of doing things. There are several ways of doing things, and outcome might vary from thing to thing, from person to person, from individual to individual. Outcome might vary along all these transactions. Under such a situation, guys, there is a dire need, there is an urgent need for standards, because we do not want everyone to be doing some different thing. Someone valuing their inventory using FIFO method, someone valuing their inventory using LIFO method, someone calculating depreciation according to SLM method, someone calculating depreciation according to WDV method. We don't want variability in treatment of a particular thing in the commercial world. And that is exactly the reason why we need standards. We need standards to choose one most acceptable way of doing thing, so that everyone can do that thing commonly and everyone can follow that standard, and our financial statements are identical and they can be compared. Because if financial statements are made using varied policies, using different policies, they are not comparable. And the most important analysis which we want to do in our financial statements is that we want to compare two financial statements from company to company to company, from year to year, from industry to industry. We want to compare the financial statements. That is what we want to do, and that is the reason why financial statements are actually prepared. And guys, for maintaining uniformity, for maintaining consistency in the way commercial transactions are executed, the way commercial transactions are done, we need standards. And that is why you see standards in case of accounting. Accounting also has standards, because there are various ways of doing accounting. Similarly, you see standards in cost accounting also, because in cost accounting also there are various ways of, like for example, absorbing overheads, absorption of overheads. There are various ways of absorbing overheads. There are various parameters which you can use. There are various keys which you can use to absorb your overheads, to charge your overheads in the cost sheet. There are various ways to it. And that is the reason why we need standards. We need principles to set our things right, to set our calculations right, to set our methods of doing things right. And that is why standards are required. Standard will tell us that, if there are multiple ways of doing a particular thing, which one do you choose? Now, let me tell you a very important thing. Just because standard has chosen that method doesn't mean it's the best method. It just means that it is the most popular method of doing that particular thing. That's it. It doesn't mean that that is the best method and other methods are worse or other methods are not good. No. So standard picks up certain ways of doing things based upon the industry practice. Whatever practice is there in the industry, whatever practice is there in the economy, according to those practices, standards pick up certain things and they execute those things, and they tell you that yes, you need to follow this thing. So which means that, can I choose a different thing from standard? Whatever standard is saying, can I say, no, I'm not following standard, I will choose a different thing? Can I do that? Please answer in the chat box. Can I do something which is different from what standard is telling me to do? Can I do that? If I can do that, under what circumstances can I do that? Please answer in the chat box. Can standards, can I overcome standards, or can I override standards and say, no, I do not do this thing, I want to do something else? Can I do that? So guys, these are normal FIKs for your knowledge, which are not very, very important from an exam standpoint. So I am skipping it. I'm directly going to CAS 1. Yes, sir. All right. Can we do? Everyone is saying no. Tejas says no. Rasmi Nijan says no. Lakshmidhar says no. Ankita says no. MN King says no. Jyotika says no. Mahendra Reddy says no. Bikash Monti says no. Oh, wow. Ankita has now given the right answer. Very good, Ankita. Very good, Ankita. Ankita has given the right answer. All right, guys. We can choose a different path from what standards are telling us. Because I've told you, there's no best part, there's no right or wrong. Okay. Standards have chosen something which industry is practicing currently. If you feel that your particular company is different from industry, if you feel that your particular company needs a different standard or needs a different way of doing that particular thing, you are open to refute standard, but you have to prove that why are you saying so. Would doing that thing in your industry makes a lot of sense, or will it make cost statements better in terms of their accuracy, in terms of their correctness? Will they make cost accounting statements better? You have to prove this fact. If you prove this fact to government of India, to the MCA, or and to the cost auditors, you can choose a different way of doing things apart from cost accounting standards. So each and every cost accounting standards has a clause which says that if we if a different standard, if a change in policy is there, of a different policy is being followed apart from the policy which is given in the accounting standards, then it may be justified using any of the following methods, that it is the change is required as per law, or a cost accounting standard has in itself has suggested some change, or the change will lead to a better presentation of cost statements. If you prove that it is so in your case, then guys, you can easily change your accounting policy as compared to cost accounting standards. But in generic terms, cost accounting standard policies are mandatory. You cannot change it unless and until there's dire need for it, there's urgent need for it, only then it can be changed. Otherwise, the application of cost accounting standards is mandatory. But yes, the application is subject to your fulfilling the condition that there's no other best way of doing this thing in your company. Okay, in your kind of a transaction, there's no best way of doing something. You have to prove that particular fact, and if you prove that particular fact, then yes, you are free to choose whatever you want to choose as a method of accounting, as a method of cost accounting. All right, so let's start our first cost accounting standard, which is the cost accounting standard on case of classification of cost. And yes, fondly I call this cost accounting standard as mother cost accounting standard. This is known as mother cost accounting standard. Why do I call it as mother cost accounting standard? Because guys, this is the basic cost accounting standard. This will teach you every aspect of costing from the basics. So, but we already know the aspects of costing from basics, because in intermediate and final, we have had 100 marks paper of costing, and they are really humongous. We already know them. Yes, guys, you know them practically. But do you know from which law are they coming? Do you know the exact wordings of what law says about those things? Where is it written? Do you know that? Answer is no. So, cost accounting standard 1 will tell you, what do you mean by abnormal cost? A simple thing, abnormal cost. And what do you mean by cost? Cost accounting standard 1 will tell you. What do you mean by absorption of cost? Cost accounting standard 1 will tell you. So, but we already know this thing. No. Knowing practically is different from reading it from theory, where it is originating from. Everyone says we know companies act well, but you need to read companies act before understanding its critical provisions. You have to read it. Similarly, guys, you have to read cost accounting standards to understand what are the provisions of cost accounting standards and what are the exact words of cost accounting standard. Only then can you practically apply those cost accounting standard, those words, in your cost accounting. So this is the mother cost accounting standard, which is the basic cost accounting standard, and it will teach us some basic stuff about cost accounting. Some basic stuff like, what do you mean by abnormal cost? What is abnormal cost? So yes, these definitions are very, very important from an exam standpoint also, guys. Abnormal cost is an unusual or atypical cost. Atypical means it doesn't typically happen. It sometimes happens, sometimes it doesn't happen. So it is a unusual cost. It is not usual that this cost is being incurred. And it's an atypical cost. It is not a typical cost. It is an atypical cost which occurs in an irregular and unexpected and abnormal situation. So the key words over here is that it's an unusual cost, atypical cost, which occurs irregularly. It doesn't happen regularly. It occurs irregularly, or unexpectedly it happens. You don't expect it and suddenly it happens, and it occurs in an abnormal situation. That is known as the abnormal cost. Next, administrative overheads. Very, very important definition from an exam standpoint also, and please underline whatever I'm asking you to underline. So very, very important definition, guys. What is abnormal cost? Okay. Abnormal cost, we've already studied. Now coming on to administrative overheads. What do you mean by administrative overheads? Okay. So administrative overheads, cost of all the activities. So administrative overheads, cost of all the activities relating to general management and administration of an entity. Now, please underline these words: general management and administration of an industry. Please underline these words: general management and administration. Okay. Administrative overhead shall exclude production overhead, marketing overhead, and interest and finance charges. So, admin overhead doesn't include production overhead, marketing overhead, and interest and finance charges. Administrative overheads do not include administration costs relating to production, factory, works, or manufacturing. So, whatever administration is happening in a factory, that is not administrative overhead. So, if there is a reception at the factory and receptionist is sitting there, that is not an administrative overhead. It's a production overhead. That is what is meant from this particular line. Okay, that is known as administrative overhead. Okay. And yes, um, to make you learn these things, there are certain charts which are there, which of course you can draw on your register also, so that you're able to remember things well, guys. So what I've done is entire cost accounting standards has been put in a chart. You can also take a screenshot on your phone. Please don't ask me to send these charts to you, okay? Because I don't have it in PDF form as of now, but I'll send it to you. That's not a problem. But yes, if you make these charts from cost accounting standards, you'll be able to remember them, because the key important point is remembrance. You have to remember these cost accounting standards well. So to remember them well, these charts will be very, very useful to all of you, okay? So cost accounting standard 1, I've covered the entire cost accounting standard in this particular chart. You can take a screenshot and you can draw this chart on your register, and you'll be, one day before the examination, you'll actually be, through with this particular chart. If you read this chart, you'll be absolutely through. Okay. So what are the parts that we are going to study in cost accounting standard 1? Definitions we are going to study. Principles of classification of cost we are going to study. Basis of classification we are going to study. What is the basis of classification? Then we are going to study presentation and disclosure. What will be the presentation and disclosure in this particular cost accounting standards? So all these we are going to study in cost accounting standard 1. And yes, these cost accounting standards will definitely come in examination, theoretically or practically. Both aspects are important, theoretically as well as practically. Now, have you noted this point, guys? Administrative overhead, it does not include the administration part in production, factory, works, manufacturing, wherever, if any administration part is there, which means a reception is there at our factory, that is not administration. That is not administration. That is production overheads. Okay. Then classification of cost. What are the types of cost? What are the classifications of cost? Classification of cost is arrangement of items in logical groups having regard to their nature. So whatever is the nature of a particular product, our particular cost, according to the nature, if we classify the cost, that is known as classification of cost. So bonus to manufacturing staff, if you provide bonus to manufacturing staff, it's an employee cost, and it will go to cost of production because it's of manufacturing staff. Okay, it's an employee cost which will go to cost of production. Bonus relating to selling staff, it's an employee cost but it will go to selling cost. That is the difference. Although it is an employee cost, but it will go to selling cost. Bonus to quality control staff, it's an employee cost, but will go to cost of quality control activities. So this is how we classify our cost according to their nature, according to their purpose. We are going to classify our cost. Okay. What do you mean by conversion cost? Conversion cost means the production cost. When we convert our raw material into finished goods, what are the costs that are incurred? Cost, amount of resources that are used in manufacturing of a goods or producing services. Guys, I know you know these basic things very well. I know you really understand these basic things very well, and these are on your tips. Okay, and you need not study them to really understand them, but think from a legal standpoint. We need everything which is there in our practical life as a theoretical part. We need everything where someone can refer to it, where someone can read. What do you mean by abnormal cost? Oh yes, by logic we all know everything, but not by logic, by law. What is law regarding abnormal loss cost? What is law regarding administrative overhead? And that is why we need these standards whereby it's written what is abnormal cost. Okay. Okay, sir. Himanshu Jain, welcome, welcome, welcome for such beautiful comments. All right. So cost centers are the entities or the areas where all the cost is accumulated, all the cost is collected. So accumulative of all the cost in a particular unit or in a particular way is known as cost center. Cost center can be of two types: personal and impersonal cost centers, operating and supportive cost centers. These are ways in which cost centers can be classified. What is personal cost center? Any cost center which is directing towards a particular person. Okay, that is known as personal cost center. The personal cost center is consist of person, group of people, basically human resource of an organization. Like imagine, you know, I have I have various classes, and those classes are divided into teachers. Okay, so Nikhil sir teaches this is subject. Okay, Mr. A teaches this is subject. Mr. B teaches. So if we have cost centers according to the teachers, then that is personal cost center because they refer to some person. And what is impersonal? Impersonal means if we classify our cost according to the levels. So foundation students cost is this, intermediate students cost is this, final students cost is this. If we divide according to the according to their class or something else, then they are impersonal cost centers. So personal cost centers, impersonal cost centers. And what is the reason of creating a cost center? It is to accumulate the cost, because the cost is to be classified according to the cost center and nature of the cost center. Okay, then operating and supporting cost accounting standards. I hope this you must be aware of. Some cost centers are there where actual production is happening, actual manufacture is happening, actual provision of services is happening. That is known as operating cost center. And the cost centers which are supporting those main manufacturing cost centers, like human resource, HR is a supportive cost center, finance is a supportive cost center. So any cost center which is supporting the main cost center is known as supporting cost center. So operating cost center and supporting cost center. This is a diagram of operating and supporting cost center. Cost object is easy, cost of production is cost unit. Now please be aware about cost unit. What do you mean by cost unit? Cost unit means the unit in which you measure a particular thing. Like milk, you measure in kgs. This ruler, you measure in inches or yards. Gallon, okay, ounce, pound, tablespoon, this is all cost units, the unit in which you are actually measuring that particular thing. There are certain examples also, and guys, these examples are directly lifted from the cost accounting standards. So cost accounting standards giving you standards of cost units. What should be the cost unit? In case of automobile, the cost unit should be number. Cable, rope, road construction wire should be meter or kilometer, etc. These are the unit numbers, the unit which can be said that okay, this particular product should be measured in this unit. These are the units. Next is prime cost. Prime cost is an aggregate of direct material cost, employee cost, and direct expense. You already are aware about it. Still, we are studying it because it is in black and white over here. Okay, production overhead, very important. Any indirect cost involved in production of a product or rendering services. Very important line, please underline this line. Production overhead includes administration costs related to production, factory, or works and manufacturing. In administrative overhead definition, I had shown you that any production place where admin stuff is being handled, it is not administrative overhead. Because if it's a production place and if administration is happening over there, it is not administrative overhead. What is it? It is production overhead. So if we have a reception at the factory, if we have the administration room at the factory, that will not be classified as admin overhead, it will be classified as production overhead. Okay, then what are semi-variable overheads? Overheads which are constant till a particular point and variable beyond that. What are variable overheads? We all know that. Standard costing. Okay, now comes the broad classification of cost. How can cost be classified according to the measurement rules which are given in the cost accounting standard? Classification of cost, that is what we are going to start today. Yes, milk on liters, correct. What is the difference between cost center and cost object? Very good question by Ajnaz. What is the difference between cost center and cost object? Okay, now cost center means a particular position, a particular area where cost is accumulated. For example, I have the departments according to the levels of CMA Inter, CMA Final, CMA Foundation. These are the three cost centers where I'll be accumulating all cost, and I'll be saying that yes, my CMA final teachers or the classes or the classrooms or the infrastructure which is being used is costing me this much. This is cost center. Okay. Next is cost object. Cost object means the subject for which the cost is being incurred. For example, if I am incurring some expenses on, say, infrastructure, I'm buying AC, I'm buying a fan, or I'm buying any kind of utilities inside that particular cost center, then those things are cost objects for which the cost is being incurred. Like students who are sitting here, they are consuming the cost. They are the cost object. So within cost centers, there are cost objects. That's the difference between cost object, and cost center. Okay. And this is the next word, guys. Cost unit. Do you understand this word also? Cost unit means the unit which is related to production. How many goods are you producing, and how are you allocating cost? What is the unit you are using for allocating the cost? That is cost unit. So these are three words: cost center, cost object, and cost unit. Okay. Now comes a very, very important classification, guys. So cost accounting standards has given you cost the basis on which you can actually classify your cost. Your cost can be classified according to these bases which are given by cost accounting standards. So cost can broadly be classified in the following basis. Nature of expense. What is the nature of your expense? That is the first way in which cost can be classified. Material, employee, and overheads is the ways in which the cost can be classified. So nature of expense is one way in which your cost can be classified. Okay. Now, why are we doing this? Why are we classifying our cost? What is the need of classifying our cost? Guys, the need of classifying our cost is that we want to prepare a cost sheet where we want to segregate our cost according to some commonalities. According to some bulk, according to some bunch, we want to segregate our cost. According to some common points, we want to segregate our cost. We don't want to flood our cost sheet by writing all the costs together. We want to club certain costs which are of similar nature, and that's the reason why we are classifying the cost. So we will classify all our costs according to material, employee, and overheads. All the costs which are there, they'll be clubbed according to this nature. The material, employee, and expenses, all three will be clubbed together according to their nature. So first way to classify the cost is nature of expense. Now you are free to choose any of these ways. Okay. Any of these ways can be chosen by you. Cost object could be a specific activity, customer, project, as opposed to cost. Very good, very, very good. Yes, cost object can also be a specific activity, some specific customer, some specific project. That can also be a cost object. So object means that the place or the purpose for which cost is being incurred. That is the cost object. Perfect. Okay, the nature of traceability to cost object. Now, according to the nature of traceability to the cost object, whether we are able to trace our cost according to our cost center or not. So, direct expenses and indirect expenses. Direct expenses are those expenses which are directly attributable to a particular cost center. Indirect expenses are those expenses which are not directly attributable to a cost center. They are indirectly attributable to a cost center. That is known as indirect expense. So direct expense, directly attributable to a cost center. Indirect expense, not directly attributable to a cost center. By functions, what functions are you performing? According to that, we can classify our cost. For example, if you are performing production function, then all the costs which are related to production are clubbed in this head. If you are performing administration function, then all the administration function which you are performing, they'll be classified under this head. So these heads are according to function. If these heads are according to function, then our cost will also be according to these functions. Yes, sir. Then by behavior. Behavior means fixed, variable, semi-variable. There are three kinds of costs which are by behavior. By nature of production process. What kind of production process do you have? Batch costing, process costing, operation costing, contract costing, joint costing. Now this is very, very important, guys, because this is a little tricky. This is a little different kind of a classification. Okay, batch cost. Batch cost means wherever the production is happening on the basis of batch, which typically happens in products like eatables. Okay, like bread which we consume. That bread which we consume, that bread is produced in batches. They are not produced in according to where they supplied. North India, South India, West India. They're not really costed according to that way. They are costed on the basis of a batches from which they are produced. Okay, so batch 120, batch 130, batch 140. So all accumulated together, all the raw material accumulated together will be produced at one go, and that one go production will be actually named as the particular batch. And where is it relevant? Now I'll tell you where is it relevant. Okay, so guys, long back there were only one kind of cell phones which are available in market, which were Nokia. Okay, and because of some manufacturing defect, Nokia, some model and a part of that particular model, because of some defect, those Nokia phone batteries were bursting. You put the Nokia phone inside the socket for charging, they will burst. Okay, because that lot, because that bulk, because that bunch which is being produced by Nokia, that was faulty. There was some fault in it, there was some error in it, and that is why that entire batch was withdrawn from market immediately by asking the customers for their batch numbers. That is what happened in Nokia. So Nokia was facilitated, was it was easy for Nokia to call back the defaulty production, because they knew that this production happened in this month according to this batch. So entire batch was withdrawn from the market. So this is the benefit of batch costing, that even if you want to withdraw anything, so if the bread is faulty, the bread doesn't have proper flour in it, so if that kind of thing happens, then entire batch can be recalled. And that's why these industries like FMCG industries work purely on batch costing, which means they will accumulate all the cost relating to a particular batch at once. That is batch costing. Process costing. Process means according to the process you can actually club your cost. For example, a particular engineering product, for example laptop, laptop is being produced using 10 processes. So for every process you can have a cost center. For every process you can classify your costs separately. That is known as process costing. Next one is operation costing. Guys, operation costing means that processes are further subdivided into sub processes, and those sub processes are known as operations. Small operations. So for highly technical industries like laptop industry, like camera industry, like mobile phone industry, we want to drill down to the lowest level, to the narrowest level. Where is the problem coming from? And in that goal, in that achieving that objective, operation costing is very important. We can easily calculate, or we can easily compute now what are the errors, what are the lacunas which are there in each of the process or each of the operation, and we can club it out. So operation costing is very important in case of highly technical goods, which are very technical, and they go through several rounds of operations in production, etc. They are known as operation costing. Contract costing, typically used in real estate sector, where the costing is done according to a particular contract, according to a particular project, so known as contract costing. Joint cost. Joint cost means wherever you are producing two goods from one raw material, and it looks something like an inverted Y. Look at this inverted Y. So from a common raw material, you are producing two finished goods. In this case, the common cost which is there, that is to be allocated to the two goods. And that is the reason why we use joint costing in this particular case. So whatever we produce is from a common raw material, and we have some common cost which is required to be used in that particular finished goods. So if you use this cost in the finished goods, then these costs will be actually used and will actually be utilized. So this is known as joint cost. So guys, depending upon your purpose, depending upon your product, what is your product, depending on all these things, you choose the relevant cost which is suitable to you. Okay sir, got it. So yes, these were the kind of costs which are there. Okay, and I've discussed them all with you, not in detail, but in very small measurement. But yes, it will be very helpful to you. All right. So now our discussion on the joint cost. Discussion on the joint cost. So guys, this is a joint input, which is crude oil. It is processed and three things are made from it: oil, gasoline, chemicals. Now the common process which is having common cost, is required to be analyzed, and the common cost is to be distributed amongst the three products which are being produced. That is the objective. That is the ask. And to split this particular cost into 3 different cost centers, we need some allocation key. And this allocation key is given by the cost accounting standard itself. They say that the joint cost incurred up to the split of point. Split of point means this is the split where 3 products are being split separately. So joint cost which is incurred should be allocated to the 3 products, to the 3 common products, joint products, in the proportion of their price at the split off point. So at this split off point, whatever is their price, according to that price. So if if these things were sold immediately when they are split off, then that price or that cost is representative of joint cost. So sales value, the revenue and the split off point will be the value in which the cost is to be split into 3 parts. That is the most important thing. Okay. Okay, sir. So these are the joint cost. Okay, presentation disclosure. Guys, presentation disclosure largely remains same in all the 24 CAS. You learn one, copy paste all in all the CAS, but barring some, application of mind, okay? Because there's some words which are different. There are some things which are different, small things. Otherwise, broadly, you can apply the disclosures and presentation all across. Broadly, you can classify it, okay? So yes, presentation classification should be done on the basis of relevant classification. So what is the classification you need to present, and you need to disclose it to the users of the cost statement. Classification of cost items should be followed consistently from period to period. It should not change every period. It should be changed only once in a while. So country to country, it should be constant. Period to period, it should be constant. Disclosure, a change in classification should be made only if it is required by law or for compliance with the cost accounting standard, or change would result in more appropriate presentation of the cost of an enterprise. Now you have to prove that I have changed this particular policy, and look, my presentation has become much better. My disclosure has become much better of my revenues, etc., because I'm splitting or following a particular thing apart from the cost accounting standard. So yes, you can refute to choose the standards which are given in cost accounting standards, but you have to prove that. Why are you doing so? If you prove, perfect. If you prove, then perfect. Okay. Okay, sir, got it. So yes, guys, there are certain practical questions also which are related to this particular chapter. Specifically from this chapter, calculation of abnormal cost is a practical part which can come in your examination. So abnormal cost calculation. Abnormal cost calculation. This is an important topic which can come in your examination. The calculation of abnormal cost. So you need to really be upfront in calculating these abnormal cost. Okay. So guys, one question. Let's do one question of calculation of abnormal cost, and then probably you can do the rest yourself. Okay. Let's do one question of abnormal cost. So it says that illustration number 1, we are starting. Okay. There was a strike from 13 September 2007 to 16 November 2007. So there was a strike in our factory in a company of which you were the cost auditor for the year ended 31st March 2008. So the financial year is ending in 2008. So the year started from 1st April 2007 to 31st March 2008. That is the year. Although the company began working from 17th November 2007, so company started working on 17th November, but production could effectively begin only from 5th December 2007. The expenses incurred during the year ended 31st March 2008 were salaries direct, salaries indirect, power variable, depreciation, other fixed expenses. See, these are the expenses which have been incurred during this period, during the entire year. Okay. Detailed examination of records reveal that of the above, the following relate to period from 13 September to 2007 to 16 November. Okay. So out of all these expenses, there are certain expenses which are incurred exclusively in this period. These are those expenses: salaries and wages, depreciation, other fixed expenses. Calculate the amount which in your opinion should be treated as abnormal for exclusion from production cost. Now what is the ask? Ask is that we need to compute the abnormal cost according to your best judgment. What will be the abnormal cost? That is what we need to compute over here. Okay, sir, got it? So let's compute the abnormal cost. Okay, so putting a heading, putting the exam, putting the question number, very essential. But yes, since we are doing it quickly, so I might lose certain formatting mandates. Okay, I might lose them, I might not draw them, or I might not write them, but you should write them for sure. Computation of abnormal cost. You need to compute the abnormal cost. Okay. Now, guys, wherever a question from abnormal cost comes in your examination, the first thing you need to do is you need to prepare a timeline. Do prepare a timeline, okay, and plot all the events which have happened during this particular period. So I'm drawing a timeline. And what will I do with this timeline? I will put some critical events on this timeline. Whatever are the critical events, I will put all those critical events on this timeline. Okay. Okay. So first of all, the year start date, 1st April 2007. Then the year end date, 31st March 2008. Okay. We'll write it. Okay. Let us first of all do a timestamp chart. Timestamping is very, very important in these questions. Okay. So guys, on 13 September 2007, the strike started. Okay. Then on 16 November, strike ended. But on 5th December, the work resumed. And the rest was the normal period. Okay. So this is the normal period. And this is the normal period. I will call it as period A. I will call it as period D. This is period B and this is period C. I've named all these periods because in my question, I'll be using them. Okay. So this period, period B, is the strike period. And also the abnormal period. And this period C is the non-strike period. There is no strike in this period. But this is a abnormal period also because work couldn't start. Although it is the non-strike period, but it is abnormal. It is not normal. It is abnormal. Although strike ended, it is a non-strike period, but it is abnormal. It's still abnormal. It's not normal. Please understand the difference because in the question I'm going to ask you and ask you to apply different methods of computing cost according to the nature of these periods. So if you have been able to understand this time chart well, please write yes in the chat box. Okay, so these are the timestamp. Now, guys, I'll tell you what do we need to compute. We need to compute the cost which has been incurred in period B. We need to compute the cost which has been incurred in period C. We will total these two adds and our abnormal cost will be in our hands. Simple as that. That is the objective. Okay, sir, got it. So let's now compute the abnormal cost. Okay. So what is the abnormal cost? We are going to compute that now. Okay, sir. Let's compute the abnormal cost. So what is the abnormal cost? Let's compute it over there. Okay. Now, guys, first of all, the cost which has been specifically incurred during the abnormal period, that of course will be the abnormal cost. There's no doubt about it. Okay. So what is the cost which we have incurred only in the abnormal period? What is that cost? I'll tell you what is that cost. Let's read the question once again. Okay. So please observe this cost. This is the cost which has been specifically incurred during the abnormal period only, which is 13 September to 16 November. This is the abnormal cost which has incurred during the abnormal period only. So this is obviously the abnormal cost. There's no doubt about it. So we are going to first of all write the total of this cost because this cost is of course the abnormal cost. Yes, sir. What is the total of this cost? Total is 220. Cost incurred in period A and B only. So the cost which has been incurred in period A and B only, that is the abnormal cost. This is the particulars and the amount. Okay. Total is 220 lakhs. So this is but obvious the abnormal cost. Okay. There's no doubt about it. Since there's no doubt about it, so we are going to add it. So why depreciation not included in cost? Depreciation is not included. Where is depreciation not included in cost? Of course, depreciation is included in the cost. Where is it not included? Okay. So now, sir, now we need to calculate the other cost. The cost, now this is the specific cost, okay? This is the specific cost. Now, guys, what are we going to do? Now we are going to calculate the cost which has been incurred during this entire period. We will divide it by the total number of days. We will multiply it by the number of days which are abnormal, and we will compute the generic abnormal cost also. So in this question, the abnormal cost is total of two costs, specific cost plus general cost given together. Now let's see how will we compute the generic cost. Yes, guys, in the chat box, you can actually throw your questions and I'll be able to answer them after seeing the question. Okay, so let's make a working note to compute the generic cost. Okay, second is cost incurred in period A and B. Okay, general cost. It is the general cost. Okay, sir, got it. So we'll prepare a working note for it. Working note. Computation of generic abnormal cost. Okay, so first I'm going to take the total expenditure which has been incurred during the year. The total expenditure which has been incurred during the year, I'll start with that figure. And then I will keep on reducing the irrelevant cost. Okay, I'll tell you how. First of all, tell me what is the total expenditure which has been incurred during the entire year. Guys, it is a sum total of these numbers. Please let me know sum total of these numbers. Please let me know the sum total of these numbers. Please let me know the sum total of the total cost. Okay. The sum total of total cost is 300 plus 200 plus 120 plus 180 plus 240. The sum total of total cost is 1040. 1040 is the sum total of cost which has been incurred during the entire year. Okay. During the entire year, this total has come. Okay. Okay. Now, guys, please see. We have already considered 220 lakh. 220 lakh is the expense which has been incurred during our strike period. This is the expense which has been incurred during our strike period. Since it has been incurred during our strike period, which is period B, we have already taken it completely. So we need not take it again as a generic expenditure. So I'm reducing the less expense incurred during strike period. I'm reducing, the first thing that I'm reducing is expense which is incurred during strike period. Let's reduce the expense which is incurred during strike period because that has already been taken into consideration. So I'm reducing 220 lakhs from this particular amount 1040. Okay, sir, perfect. All right. Now, Now guys, look at these costs. Look at these costs. We need to really find out what are the costs out of these costs, what are the costs which have specifically been incurred during abnormal period. Because there are certain costs which happen evenly throughout the period. So that would obviously take place in abnormal period also. So we want to see what are the costs which have been incurred in abnormal period. To understand that, we need to understand the nature of each of the costs. Now I'll explain one by one. Okay, let's start with salaries. Direct salaries. Direct salaries. Direct salaries means salaries related to labor. Salaries related to labor who are doing our production. Okay. Now I'll ask you a very simple question, guys. Very, very simple question. During the strike period, will direct salary be incurred in our organization or not? Will direct salary be incurred in our organization or not? During strike period, which is period B in our case, will labor cost, direct labor cost be incurred or not? Please write in the chat box. Salaries and wages direct. Okay. Will it be incurred or not? Yes or no? Oh wow. Ghoshal Dake has already written the answer also. So please tell me whether 300 will be incurred during the strike period or not. Whether it will be incurred or not. Answer is no. During strike period, it will not be incurred, because during strike period, when laborers are on strike by their own sweet will, they will not be paid the direct wages. So this expenditure will not have incur in strike period, and therefore this expenditure is not there in the strike period list. Perfect. Question number 2. Whether salaries and wages indirect, will it take place during strike period and non-strike period? That is during period B or period C. Will it take place or not? Will it take place or not? Will it take place or not during strike period and non-strike period? Answer is, sir, it will definitely take place. Yes. Because these are indirect. Indirect means they are never on strike. They are indirect staff, which means they are on finance, payroll, HR. All these things are indirect. They will not stop. They will continue working. Okay. So direct, they will not be there during strike period. But my next question is, please tell about direct. Once again, I'm coming back to direct. Will direct expenditure be there in non-strike period? Will direct expenditure be there in non-strike period? When the strike has ended, but the production has not effectively started during that period, will direct wages, direct salaries be there or not? Yes, they will definitely be there. During non-strike period, the direct salaries will be there. But during non-strike period, indirect salaries will definitely be there. During strike and non-strike period, indirect salaries will definitely be there. So both of these things will be there during non-strike period. Okay. And guys, please see, out of this indirect expenses, 70 is already taken as salaries or wages over here. It's already included. Okay, next. Power variable. So please tell me, power variable, whether it will take place during strike period or not. And during non-strike period, whether this power variable will take place or not. Answer is no. Why, sir? But fan, AC, tube lights, all these will be running. Guys, power variable doesn't mean that they are referring to the fans, ACs, and lights which which are illuminating our room, which are providing air to us. They don't mean about. They don't. They are not referring to that. They are referring to our machines. Whatever power is being consumed in production, whatever power is being consumed by our machines, that is the power variable. All these electricity expenses like tube light, fan, AC, these are not the real power expenditure which is there in our business. These are very minuscule element of power. What are the major elements of power? Our machinery, which is running. Okay. So now my question is, whether power variable, whether this expenditure will be there during strike and non-strike period. Answer in a yes or a no in the chat box. Whether power variable will be incurred in our strike period or non-strike period? Answer is no. It will not be incurred during strike period. Neither it will be incurred during non-strike period. Why? Because during strike period and non-strike period, machinery has not effectively started. Production did not begin during non-strike period, which is the abnormal period. Production has not started. So power variable expense will not be there in both the cases. No, in both the cases. Okay. So guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to compute the common cost, and then I'm going to do the pro rata. So next thing I'm going to reduce from here, because it has not been incurred at all, is power variable. Because why should I prorate power variable in period B and C? Period B and C. Why should I allocate? Because this has not been incurred. When this has not been incurred, then I should not allocate also. So power variable should not be allocated. So I'm reducing it from the total cost. What is the amount of power variable? What is the amount of power variable? It is 120. Yes, 120. I'm not going to allocate power variable to strike or non-strike period, because power variable has not started during strike or non-strike period. Okay, I will not be allocating it. I've reduced it. Okay, okay, sir. Next, machinery chali nahi. Bilkul, Twinkle Rustagi says machinery chali nahi. Good. Okay, next expenditure. Now, please tell me depreciation, whether depreciation was incurred during strike or non-strike period, whether depreciation was incurred or not. Sir, what if machinery was closed? No, sir, machinery was closed, sir. How can depreciation happen? Wear and tear happens only when machinery was running. When machinery was closed, you said power variable was not there. Of course, depreciation was also not there. Please offer your comments in the chat box. Please offer your comments in the chat box whether depreciation would have been incurred during strike and non-strike period or not. So Mahendra Reddy says there was no wear and tear, so depreciation has not incurred. Twinkles says depreciation to lagega. Sandeep Mishra says yes. Anyone else? Anyone else? Any other answer? Interesting. Very, very interesting. Any other answer, guys? Yukta says no. Payal says no. Nikhil Gaikwad says depreciation incurred. Chandrasekhar says no. Guys, depreciation definitely will be incurred. Whether during the strike period, this is the strike period, or during the non-strike period, depreciation would definitely have been incurred. So yes, depreciation will definitely be allocated to the non-strike period, abnormal period also. Next, other fixed expenses. Please tell me whether other fixed expenses would have been incurred. Yes, fixed expenses like rent will be incurred even if you are on a strike. Even if your company is on a strike, the rentals will definitely be charged. Twinkle says, "अरे sir, depreciation तभी लगना चालू हो जाता है जब put to use हो और वो पहले ही हो गया होगा." Twinkle says, "Very very good ज्ञान." Okay, Goshal. Depreciation has been charged from the time you put the asset for use. You can't stop it arbitrarily. Very good answer. Ankit, that has incurred. It's not matter whether machine is put to use or not. Very good. So depreciation is annual amortized. So it should be there. Very good, guys. Very good answer. So yes, depreciation would have been incurred. So I want an allocation of depreciation to my non-strike period also. Other fixed expenses, yes, it would have been incurred. So I want the allocation on my, the non-fixed period also. So these are the expenses which have been allocated to the strike period. And now this is the sum total which I have concluded, that out of this total, I'll be finding out the expense which have been incurred during period C. Okay. Abnormal cost, generic abnormal cost. This is during period C. So what is the total number of amount which is to be allocated? 10 minus 220 minus 120. So the total cost is 220 minus 120. So the total cost which is to be allocated is 700. As this is the cost which has been incurred for the entire year. Now we need to compute the cost which has been incurred during period C. Period C. So why only period C? Why not period B? Because guys, period B expense we have already calculated over here, 220. That is period B abnormal expense. Now using this method, we'll be computing the period C abnormal expense. Okay. Okay, sir. So now I need to know what are the number of days. in the year excluding strike period B. Sir, why are we excluding strike period B? Because strike period B is also already considered in 220. So I'm excluding the total number of days. I'm reducing strike period from the total number of days. Okay. 700 is the total number. Okay. Let us see. 220. Okay. Now we need to find the total number of days, which means this means A plus C plus D. A plus C plus D. So the entire year, guys, entire year has got 366 days. We will reduce the days which are there in period B. Okay. What is period B? Period B is 13th September 2007 to 16th November 2007. This is period B. Okay. So you calculate the number of days. Okay. For September, for October, for November. Okay. So for September, there should be 30 minus 13 plus 1. There should be 18 days for September. Okay. For October, there are 31 days for October. Okay. 18 days for September, 31 days for October. And finally, for November, what are the number of days for November? 16 days for November. 16 is included. So 16 plus 31 plus 18 comes to 65. So 366 minus 65. This becomes 301. These are the number of days in the entire year. The number of days during period B. Number of days during period C. So what are the number of days during period C? That is what we need to compute now. Okay, period C. Number of days during period C. Period C is starting from 17th of November. Okay, starting from 17th of November. So 14 days of November and 4 days of December, because from 5th production started. Okay, so 14 days of November, 4 days of December comes to 18 days. So days during period C is 18 days. Okay, now expense for period C. What is the expense for period C? It's 700 divided by 301 multiplied by 18. That is the prorate. Divided by 301 multiplied by 18 comes to a figure of 41.86. Comes to a figure of 41.86. So we'll write 41.86 lakhs over here. We'll just aggregate these two numbers. And here we've got the abnormal cost. The total abnormal cost is computed by us. The total abnormal cost which is being computed over here is 261.86 lakhs. 261.86 lakhs. That is a very, very easy question. Okay. It will fetch you, say, about 6 marks, 6 to 8 marks it can fetch you. And definitely an important one. It can come in the examination for sure. Yes, there might be slight variations to this question when it comes in the examination, but largely it will be this kind of a question. So you need to practice this kind of question from CAS 1. So from CAS 1, definitions can come for sure. Practical question like this can come for sure. These are the two most expected things from CAS 1. Okay. Again, these are the various questions of the calculation of abnormal cost which have been given in your study mat. And what I've done is I've accumulated all the past examination questions also of abnormal cost in my study mat. so that you can revise as many questions as possible, because practicing these questions is the key in the examination. If you don't practice them, then you will be at a loss for sure. All right, so let's start our next case. Before we start our next case, how's the Josh in the room, guys? Please tell me, how's the Josh? Yes, Josh is high. So 16 strike ended, but when did work start? Work started on 17th, Abhishek. How's the Josh? Very, very high, very, very interesting. Very nice, superb. Guys, it's really important to do these standards well, because these standards are definitely going to be of use to all of you. They'll be of use, and they will, fetch you good marks in the examination. Excellent, full stuff, very good. बताओ किसको पीटना है? हाँ, ये पिटाई की बात कहां से आ गई, नालायक? अच्छा, जोश की वजह से पीटना नहीं, पीटना नहीं है। जोश से इतनी पढ़ाई करनी है कि सबकी रैंक आ जाए और कॉस्ट ऑडिट में 90 प्लस मार्क्स आ जाए। ऐसा जोश होना चाहिए। हमें फिजिकल वॉयलेंस नहीं करनी, हमें मेंटल वॉयलेंस करनी है। इतना माइंड को स्ट्रांग कर लो, इतनी मेंटल स्ट्रेंथ बना लो, इतना मेंटल जुनून अपने अंदर ले आओ कि लाओ क्या क्वेश्चन लाते हो दुनिया वालों। हम नहीं डरते किसी मुश्किल से मुश्किल क्वेश्चन से, हम नहीं डरते मुश्किल से मुश्किल थ्योरेटिकल पार्ट से। लाओ, ले आओ जो क्वेश्चन लाना है, हम विजयी होकर ही दिखाएंगे। वो जोश चाहिए भाई, फोड़ने फाड़ने वाला जोश नहीं चाहिए। हाँ। Okay, let's start the next cost accounting standard, cost accounting standard 2, which is capacity determination. Again, a very, very important cost accounting standard from an exam standpoint. Both theoretical and practical questions come from this particular exam, this particular cost accounting standard. Question is, why do we call it as a father cost accounting standard? Guys, the reason why we call it as a father cost accounting standard, because the entire costing is based out of this one element, which is capacity determination. Capacity means kshamta. Capacity means your capability of producing something. If a organization's capability is not good enough of producing something, then it's bound to go into losses. To avoid any organization from going to losses, we make sure that the capacity of that particular organization is full enough, the capacity of that organization is good enough, and the capacity is up to the standard which is required of the production. And if capacity is there up to the standard which is required for production, then we are going to achieve our fullest profit. Suppose if capacity is too high and the demand is too low, then also it's a waste for us, because maintaining that particular facility is very expensive. So our profits will be eaten up in maintaining of that infrastructure. So capacity should not be very high, should not be very low, should be medium, it should be average. That is how capacity works. Okay, so let's start cost accounting standard number 2, capacity determination. Okay, sir. So guys, these are the various kinds of capacities. So first, you need to understand what are the various kinds of capacities. And for making you understand various kinds of capacities, I'm going to delve into this chart which we have prepared. So this is the summary chart of the entire cost accounting standard. Okay, this is a summary chart. Now we are going to see the chart which is made in the book. Yes, this is the chart. Very, very important chart. And there's an old cost accounting standard also, which we are not going to refer to because it has changed completely. Guys, in the class on a safer side, I also teach old cost accounting standard, because, on a safer side, I want you to study it. But frankly speaking, it's not required now. Revised cost accounting standard is what you need to understand. Okay. Okay, let's start. Let's start cost accounting standard 2. So what is cost accounting standard 2? Cost accounting standard 2 relates to capacity determination. So there are primarily 3 kinds of capacities which are there in cost accounting standard 2. It says installed capacity, normal capacity, actual capacity. These are the 3 kinds of capacities which are there in our cost accounting standard 2. Okay, what do you mean by installed capacity? Guys, installed capacity means the capacity which our machinery has if it is run 24/7 non-stop. Yes, it is not practically possible to run our factory 24/7, but still we compute this installed capacity. Assuming that our factory, our plant will run 24/7, 7 days a week without even a single off, and 24 hours per day. Suppose if our plant runs 24/7, what is the capacity that it is going to achieve? It is not practically possible. Only very few industries are there where it is practically possible, which industries which work on shifts, 3-shift basis, and works on 24 hours basis. So sometimes it definitely happens that the capacity runs in that way, but practically it is not generally possible. Okay. Now the thing is that installed capacity is manufacturer's specification. I'll tell you what is manufacturer's specification. Guys, manufacturer specification, which is given on the manual of the machinery. Any machinery's manual, it is given. Okay. So for example, when I bought this laptop or mic or camera, it said that this camera can work for, say, 8 hours without battery. Without changing battery, it can work for 8 hours. That is the maximum capacity which can be achieved. It is a manufacturer's capacity which can be achieved. But when I make use of this camera for 8 hours, sometimes it gets heated up. Yes, it gets heated up. So installed is not practical. Installed is if on an hypothetical basis, on an assumption basis, we make use of this plant machinery 24/7, then what will be the capacity? And generally, usually, it is not achievable. It is not practical. Usually, sometimes it can be. So that is the first capacity which we need to compute. Second capacity is the normal capacity. Normal capacity means now you need to ascertain what are the practicalities. Obviously, guys, you will not work on Sundays. Obviously, you will not work in lunch hours. You will have to give some tea time. Sometimes you will not work around the clock. There will be some inefficiencies. So what is the normal capacity? So forget about installed capacity. It's a distant dream. Installed capacity is a dream capacity. Normal capacity is the achievable capacity, the practical capacity which can be achieved. That is normal capacity. The practical capacity which can be achieved, that is the normal capacity. So what should be our target? Should our target be installed capacity utilization or normal capacity utilization? It should be normal capacity utilization. That is the capacity which we can attain, which we can actually think that we can achieve. Okay. Last one is actual capacity. So usually things don't work the way we want them to work, or the way we think those things will work. Things don't work that ways. So whenever we have normal capacity, the actual capacity might be a little different because of inefficiencies. There might be inefficiencies which might reduce our normal capacity to actual capacity. So normal capacity minus the abnormal inefficiencies that will lead to the actual capacity. So to say, if we reduce the normal reductions in capacity from installed, it will give us normal capacity. Normal reductions means Sunday has to be off. 1 hour lunch hour has to be given. Planned maintenance will definitely happen. These are normal losses. So when we reduce from installed capacity the normal losses, it will give us normal capacity. And when we reduce all other losses like abnormal losses, we will get actual capacity. Sir, how is actual capacity determined? That is, the actual capacity is determined according to the number of units which that plant machinery can make. So for example, if I tell you that, there's a very big factory of producing calculators. There are machines, there are plants where calculators are produced. And the capacity of that particular plant is to produce 1 lakh calculators per month. This is the capacity. 1 lakh calculators per month. This is the capacity. So that is the definition of the word capacity. And installed capacity, normal capacity, actual capacity. Okay. Now, what is the significance of these arrows? Guys, these arrows A, B, and C will give us what is the lacking in capacity, what is the downsizing of capacity, where we have not been able to achieve capacity. What is that? What is the differential between installed capacity and actual capacity? That is what is denoted by these arrows. Okay. So arrow number 1 is the idle capacity. Till what time have been wasted? Idle capacity. Okay. So arrow number 1 is the idle capacity. Installed capacity minus actual capacity. That is the idle capacity, the time during which our machinery has stopped working and has not worked efficiently. That is normal. That is idle capacity. Now we know that out of this idle capacity, some capacity is normal idle capacity, which is this capacity. This had to happen. We had no control over it. This is normal capacity. And what is abnormal capacity? C is abnormal capacity. Normal capacity minus actual capacity is abnormal capacity. C is abnormal capacity. B is the normal idle capacity. C is the abnormal idle capacity. So normal idle capacity, abnormal idle capacity. Now, which one should we try to control? C, abnormal idle capacity. Which one we can't control? B. B we can't control. It is the normal idle capacity. B we can't control. C we can control. So where should be our focus? Our focus should be on C, abnormal idle capacity. So that is how capacity, idle capacity is bifurcated into normal idle capacity and abnormal idle capacity. Normal capacity is past reduction for maintenance, planned, holidays, change over batches. Very good. Goshal has learned the examples also. Idle time maintenance less from installed. Very good. Actual capacity is the actual volume production vis-a-vis installed capacity. Very good. Very good. So guys, I hope you understood this particular part well. In the exam, you will be given data to calculate the installed capacity, to calculate the normal capacity, and to calculate the actual capacity. By reducing these respective capacities, you will be able to find the idle capacities also, and according to the idle capacities, you will be able to find the normal capacity utilization, etc., etc. So I'll discuss those also in brief detail. So idle capacity is installed capacity minus actual capacity. That is idle capacity. Installed capacity minus actual capacity is idle capacity. Normal idle capacity is installed capacity minus normal capacity is normal idle capacity. Abnormal idle capacity is normal capacity minus actual capacity. That is abnormal idle capacity. Actual capacity utilization. What is the utilization in percentage forms? Actual capacity divided by installed capacity is the actual capacity utilization. Idle capacity utilization, idle capacity divided by installed capacity. Normal and abnormal respectively. So denominator will remain the same, installed capacity, and whichever capacity you write in the numerator, it will become that capacity utilization. So these are important formulas which will definitely come in your examination. Need to learn the formulas well and need to learn the definitions of the capacity as well. That is the ask. That is the very, very important thing. Okay, sir, got it. So yeah, these examples I'm not going to discuss because these are just plus minus, guys. Plus minus. These are not very useful. Now, one very important thing, guys, in your cost accounting standard as well as in your study mat, there are some commonly used units for capacity determination. So what are the units which are used for determining the capacity? So in case of a spinning mill, spindles, the round xylos kind of thing, they are used as the capacity measurement. Hospitals, number of beds is the capacity measurement in case of hospitals. Airports, capacity of passengers during the peak time, that is airport's capacity. Port, now facilities available for maintaining that particular port, etc., etc. So these are the various capacity measurements which can be used in various industries. So these are capacity measurement. Okay. Now presentation and disclosures. How do you present or disclose certain things? You need to present installed capacity, normal capacity, actual capacity utilization. You need to present basis of arriving at the capacity. You need to present changes in installed capacity and normal capacity. You need to present. In some machines are taken on lease, then the additional capacity that you have taken on lease, that is to be presented. So these are the things which you need to present during calculation of capacity determination. These are things which you need to present before in the cost audit report. These are the things. Okay. And in the practice question, I've given you the past examination questions which have come, and certain other questions also which have come in your study material. Okay, sir, got it. So yes, guys, this was Cost Accounting Standard 2 for all of you. Cost Accounting Standard 2 for all of you. Okay. Now let's move on to the next Cost Accounting Standard. Very, very interesting Cost Accounting Standard. Amazing Cost Accounting Standard. The Ghost Cost Accounting Standard or the Bhoot Cost Accounting Standard. So guys, I've given these names just to make you remember the numbers and the context of the Cost Accounting Standard. Okay. These weird names have been given to just tell you the context. Okay. This is the Ghost Cost Accounting Standard or the Bhoot Cost Accounting Standard. Okay. Okay. So now what are overheads? Okay. What are overheads? What is the definition of overheads? Can you please tell me in the chat box, what is the definition of overheads? Please tell in the chat box, what is the definition of overheads? Please tell in the chat box, what is the definition of overheads? Definition of overheads I want in the chat box. What is the definition of overheads? Vivek Labhate has directly written the most important words in the definition. Wrong answer by Mahendra Reddy. Manufacturing cost. Wrong answer. Ajnas says total of indirect expense. Overheads means indirect expense only. But what is the definition of overheads? What do you mean by overheads? That is what I want to ask. No one? No one? No answer, guys? No answer? So overhead means wrong answer by Ankita Murarka. Guys, you guys are CMA finalist. CMAs are expert in costing. And if I ask you what are overheads, you're not able to tell me what are overheads. So guys, overheads means any expenditure which is not directly allocable to a particular cost center. And it relates to multiple cost centers. Overheads are the indirect expenses that are not directly allocable to a particular cost center. And they are they will be indicative of multiple cost centers. So cost which has been incurred for multiple cost centers is known as overheads or indirect expense. Now guys, overheads which are attributable to multiple cost centers, those overheads, when we say this definition that which we are not able to allocate to different cost centers, we are not defining it well. Because we need to write that overheads are those indirect expenses which are not allocable to a particular cost center in an economically feasible manner. These words are very, very important. Because I'll tell you what, there's nothing called overhead in this world. Every expenditure can be allocated in a in the cost centers, even if it is used for multiple cost centers. I'll give you the example. I have admin staff in my academy who works for CMA Foundation, CMA Inter, CMA Final. All three of them, their cost is usually treated as overheads because they're working for all three cost centers. Now, the ask is that the cost should not be directly allocable to a particular cost center. But guys, I can ask that person to allocate his cost according to the time which he spends in CMA Foundation, CMA Inter, and CMA Final. I have a receptionist who spends time all three of them. I will give a gadget to that receptionist. Receptionist will start working on CMA Foundation. She will feed in the time that this is the time which I've spent on CMA Foundation on a daily basis, on an hourly basis. Then whenever some inquiry comes for CMA Inter, she will quickly feed in the time that 15 minutes I've spent on answering this query. Then I will ask her to feed her time according to the hourly basis in this particular tracker. I will be able to allocate this overhead into the cost centers. I have 3 cost centers. I'll be able to allocate. So principally, there is no overhead. There's nothing called overhead. It is bhoot, it is ghost, it is not there. It is only the fact that, what is the cost that I will be incurring on allocating that particular cost center to cost objects? It will be humongous cost of that software and gadget. Will it justify my costing procedure? Suppose the salary of the receptionist is 20,000 rupees. And that gadget will cost me 30,000 rupees. Is it practically useful to allocate that indirect cost into direct cost? Answer is no. It is not practically useful and practically relevant. So we will leave it. There is nothing called overhead. It is just because the cost benefit analysis is not realized. That is why some expenses become overheads. And that is why the most important thing in this particular cost accounting standard is the definition of overheads. Overheads means the indirect material, indirect labor, and indirect expenses which are not identifiable or allocable to a cost subject in an economically feasible way. If you do not write these words, then your definition is incomplete. Because every expenditure can be allocated to the cost centers. There's no expenditure which cannot be allocated to a cost center. Every cost can be allocated to a cost center. That is the fact. Yes, Ghoshal Dake has given very beautiful definition. So I'll display it on the chat, on the screen as well. Basically, any cost can be allocated, but cost of allocation should not exceed the cost of actual expense. Hence, some costs are treated as overheads, cost and benefit analysis. Very good definition by Ghoshal Dake. Yes. And guys, so whenever you define indirect cost, always write these three words in an economically feasible way. So indirect costs are not allocable in an economically feasible way. But indirect cost can be allocated if we want to allocate them. They can be allocated. Yes, it is not impossible to allocate indirect cost. Okay. Now, overhead costs are of three types, which we all know already. Okay. Production overheads, absorption of production overheads, we already discussed. Yes, this is the part. Okay. Now, principles of measurement. How do we recognize or how do we calculate the amount of indirect expense? How the amount of indirect expense can be calculated? How the amount of indirect expense can be calculated? How the amount of overhead can be calculated? Number one, production or operation overheads represented procurement of resources from outside the organization. If we are purchasing the indirect expense from outside the organization, if we are purchasing the overheads from outside the organization, if we are doing that, then what will be the total of cost that will be incurred? It will be the invoice or the agreed price, including the duties and taxes and other expenditure directly attributable thereto, net of discount. So whatever total invoice or agreed price we have paid for this particular expense, for incurring this particular expense, we'll add on all those expenses and we'll reduce any discount other than cash discount. Cash discount will not be reduced because it is in the nature of finance income. Tax and duties refundable or to be credited should be reduced. That is how our entire overhead will be calculated. Okay. Now, if the overhead, production or operation overhead, representing utilization of resources within the organization, which means we have in-house way in which we can incur these expenses. These overheads are being incurred within the organization. For example, we have a different repair and maintenance department. We have it within the organization, which is doing repair and maintenance of all the machineries which are there in the plant. All the machineries which are there in the plant, all the cost centers which are there, repair and maintenance is being done by our repair and maintenance cost center. Then what will happen to the cost? We will include cost incurred in connection therewith. Whatever cost is incurred for repairing, for maintaining that particular cost center, that cost will be accumulated. For example, machinery spare fabricated internally or repair job carried out internally includes cost incurred on material, employees and expenses. So whatever cost has been incurred internally on these overheads, that will be accumulated. Okay. So these are the overheads representing utilization of resources within the organization. Okay. Then, guys, these are very, very important principles, and these principles will be repeated in the next few cost accounting standards. All the 24 cost accounting standards, these principles will be common. So if you remember one principle, then you will not be required to required to remember other principles. So just remember the principles which are stated over here, and you'll automatically be able to remember the other principles, the principles which are given in other cost accounting standards. Oh, good evening. Mr. Pediwal is here. Nikhil SH. These costs are economically not traceable. Very good answer, Nikhil SH. Mr. Pediwal has joined the live session a little late today. Good evening, Mr. Pediwal. All right. Any abnormal cost where it is material or quantifiable shall not form part of production overheads. So we only recognize production overheads when it is material and quantifiable. Okay. So abnormal cost where it is material and quantifiable shall not form part of overhead. Abnormal cost always goes in costing P&L account. We never add it in our cost sheet. So that is very, very important, that abnormal cost goes in that cost sheet and not in the production overheads. Production or operation overhead shall not include imputed cost. Imputed cost means notional cost. Notional cost means, suppose I have an organization and my production manager resigned. My brother knows some technicalities of production, so I appoint him as my production manager without any salary because he's my brother for 6 months. Then he leaves after 6 months. Okay. Now he did not take any salary, but in my cost sheet, I am adding this amount of salary. Not permitted. This is notional or imputed cost. This is imputed cost. So not possible. This is absolutely not possible. So imputed cost shall not be included. Production overhead variances attributable to normal reasons. So there can be some variances. If you are using standard costing, then there can be some variances. Variances attributable to normal reasons shall be treated as part of production overhead. So normal variances should be treated part of normal production overhead. Overhead variances attributable to abnormal reason. When you attribute the overheads due to abnormal reason, then it shall be excluded from production overheads. Okay. Any subsidy, grant, incentive which is received from government shall be reduced. Received from government or anyone. Okay. Fines, penalties, damages should never be included in your cost. And we will follow these principles in all the cost accounting standards, guys. In all the cost accounting standards, we will follow these principles. Credits or recoveries, if you are making some credit or recoveries from these costs, then we will reduce it. Any change in cost accounting, very, very important, guys, very, very important principle. If you want to change your cost accounting standard, yes, you can do it. Only if 3 conditions are satisfied. Number 1, it is required by law. Number 2, it is required for compliance with cost accounting standard. Number 3, the change will result in an appropriate presentation or representation of cost statements. If any of these 3 conditions are satisfied and you are able to satisfy your cost auditor that yes, a change in cost accounting principle is required, only then this change can be done. That is the bottom line. Okay, sir, got it? Assignment of production overheads. Now, how do you assign production overheads? Okay, assign means you need to actually club the entire overheads and you need to allocate them according to the cost centers. That is known as assignment of overheads into various cost centers. Okay, so what is the principle that you will derive during assignment? Cause and effect relationship. So you know what is the reason, which is the process, operation or activities that has led to incurrence of this cost. That is the first principle. So suppose if oil has come in our factory. Now oil has been consumed, 5 kgs oil has come. 3 kgs have been consumed by production cost center A, 1 kg by B, 1 kg by C. So the cost will be incurred according to the incurrence of cost. Whatever consumption has happened, according to the consumption incurrence of cost, the cost shall be allocated. So whosoever has consumed more, he shall be he shall be given the credit of that particular cause. So cause means for which cost center are we incurring this expense? For which cost center has this cost be incurred? That is the prime principle. Principle number 2, what are the benefits received by the individual cost centers? So according to the benefits, cause and effect and benefits, there are 2 principles in which assignment is need to be done. What are the benefits which each and every cost center has derived from consuming this particular product? So what are the benefits which are received? So benefits received and cause and effect, these are 2 ways in which our cost accounting standard, our cost can be allocated to various cost centers. That is how the assignment is done. This is the assignment of production overheads. Assignment is done in these 2 ways. Okay. Then in case of facility created standby, cost shall be assigned on the basis of expected benefit. That is perfectly fine. Absorption. Okay. Then guys, that's it. Okay. So yes, that's it, guys. Cost accounting standard 3, again an important cost accounting standard. Cost center को assign करेंगे या cost object को? अरे भाई जो होगा उसको assign करेंगे. अगर तो cost centers हैं, cost centers means जो आपके fixed cost centers हैं, जैसे हमारे केस में क्या है? हमारे केस में है फाउंडेशन, इंटर, फाइनल. ठीक है, 3 cost centers हैं. We will allocate according to the cost centers. ठीक है. Now we have 4 subjects in the cost center of foundation. Okay, 4 cost objects are there. 4 cost objects in cost center. Okay. Now if we are making our cost sheet according to the cost center, which is foundation, intermediate, final, then I will allocate according to the cost center. But if I say that no, I want to make my cost sheet according to the cost object as well, then I will further allocate my expenses according to the teachers who are teaching these 4 subjects: economics, maths, law, accounts. So cost object means within a cost center, what is the particular area in which cost is allocated? Or cost object sometimes also means the different projects which are there. So I have multiple projects going on as a real estate person. I have different projects which are going on at various places. They are my cost objects. So it depends on what kind of industry are you. Okay. So yes, guys, this was cost accounting standard 3 for you. So, I've quickly revised cost accounting standard 3 because it's very, very important to, revise it at the last moment so that you remember it during your examination. And when you remember it during your examination, guys, there's a high possibility that, things click. Okay. So revise these as many times as possible because these marathon videos are purposed in that way that you need revision of these, every time you are studying for it. So revise as much as possible, and yes, you'll be able to see the results in your favor very, very soon. So yes, that's all for today's session, guys. Cost accounting standard 1, 2, and 3 we are able to discuss. In the next session, we'll be continuing with our rest of the cost accounting standards, which are cost accounting standard 4, 5, 6, as many as I can do in one session. I'll try to finish and cover as many cost accounting standards as I can in one session. And yes, our exams are quite near, so we'll be ready for our examination as well. On that positive note, all the very best and happy studying. Bye bye. See you in the next live session. Bye.